Okay, great. So I'm going to put it actually on speaker view, and I might even pin myself here or spotlight. Okay, and I see Amy there, if you don't mind letting her in. Masha. Okay, great. So basically what I did for today, hi Amy, is I put together a ton of notes and then was like, I can't put this into pretty slides for this class. So I'm going to copy and paste things into the chat so you have it there. I think you can also just be able to save the chat. Um, I've laid it out in a way that I think even if I talk through it, it'll hopefully be clear. But I'm sorry, no pretty slides for today. So there's a couple things I'm going to go through today around social media. This is something that I'm like always really interested in, and I'm surprised that we haven't even really talked about this as much in the community. But I'm going to share, there's a couple caveats about the time here, which is that I am definitely sharing in some ways from my perspective. I'm going to say things that I think are helpful to people that maybe have many different strengths and different goals for social media. But there, of course, is going to be this element of like, if you've seen what I'm doing on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, you kind of have a sense of like, oh, okay, this is the thing that Nick is finding works that he likes to do, which may overlap with things that you want to do and may not. And it's certainly the way I do things is not the only way to do things. So I invite everyone here to kind of take it with a grain of salt that like this is just one perspective. And just as we always do in focalizing, to attend to your body and listen for the moments where there might be a no or a maybe or a there feels like a barrier there for me. Um, that's challenging for me. So that's actually the very first thing that I started with my notes is to acknowledge everyone has different goals, and I'll start to type things in the chat. Um, and the thing that I see often when it comes to social media is kind of like two branches of thought. And so I'm going to ask you all to actually think a little bit about which type of. So there is one assumption I'm making here, which is that you're considering using social media as a way to market what you're doing or to reach people with what you're doing. So that's the first assumption. But then the second thing is to ask you to think about what kind of um, speaker or community builder are you? And in general, there's two broad categories. One is people that are great at managing and creating relationships with a small community. I might find a way to copy and paste. And then second is people who want to speak. And I'm going to ask you to kind of just take a moment to think about between these two categories, what type of person might you be? Are you someone that in the first category? Because I've seen this many, many times that there are people that have maybe just a few thousand followers, they're getting a couple hundred views on their videos, but they're building really good relationships with people. And often what goes hand in hand in this category, I find for people that are really successfully doing it, is that they're really artful at using their newsletter as a channel to kind of sell things. So it's like small community, very close relationships, word of mouth through a small group of people, but that really feel like you're kind of a diamond in the rough. And I love what you're saying. And I, I like that you're my kind of secret in the world. And there's actually something like a secret power to that. Like when you are working in a smaller community, you feel it's easier to feel more one-to-one tangible connections with the people that you are meeting in social media. Um, so that's one side of things. Um, the second side is definitely where I sit more comfortably, which is like someone that is like a little bit more like, okay, I'm gonna get up on stage, I'm gonna like do my song and dance and just tinker with how do I reach as many people as possible. And then the business model, these terms I don't love, but like the business model is if 0.0001% of people decide to sign up for a class I'm doing fine. Like I've got a great model because the audience is there and only a very small percentage of people actually have to respond to things. And I will say I am definitely built towards that second category. Like I don't know, some of you might know this. I played music for a long time. I was in a touring band, and there is something about I get up on stage, I do my thing, and I go back and I'm alone. And like I'm gonna be in the green room by myself. Like that weirdly makes sense to me. And so I do social media in a very similar way. And I've even gotten people kind of commenting at times like, Nick, I feel like I don't really know you through social media. And it's like, yeah, that's not my skill set. I'm good at like, I have a message I want to deliver. I want to teach something. And I'm going to try to teach it in the way that resonates with people and grabs people and communicates something. Hopefully they aren't hearing somewhere else. So maybe do people want to even just kind of put into the chat? We could make this interactive, like, and please feel free to volunteer a different category altogether. But do you see yourself leaning towards one or the other as best you know? Some of this you discover by doing, so you might not know, and that's okay. So small community, really connected, or I like to just try to reach people and speak publicly and kind of be on stage. Yeah, cool. Cool. So I'm going to try to speak towards both, but the thing that I want to say is both are completely viable to have successful businesses. You're speaking to someone that leans towards two, so some of my feedback might not be perfect for one. That's all. That I just want to make sure it gets across. Okay. Um, so let me go through a little bit of my notes here. Okay. So the thing I'm gonna basically speak to a few things I think people get really tripped up around social media, and um, it is I think there's a number of reasons why it's very easy to get tripped up and kind of uncomfortable around social media. The platform is weird. I mean, there's a lot of ways where, like, as a medium, I think it's really strange. I feel like I'm venturing into a jungle that's like not my home, but I go there because there's people in that space, and maybe, just maybe, some of them will come with me over to other things that I like better, basically. So there's a little bit of this I just want to acknowledge, like as I share these ideas with you, which I think are going to be really helpful, I always hold in the background that like I'm kind of doing a weird thing. This is a little bit weird. Being on our phones as much as we are is weird. I it's just so I'm kind of playing. There's something about this is what I'm trying to say. I think making peace and working through the way that we are interacting with a format that we might have issues with, hang-ups around, frustrations with. Um, and and when I say like, I don't mean just like snap your fingers, get over it. I mean like actually kind of actively work on these things. For me, I've had to do a lot of internal, just kind of, it's almost like journaling or just working it out in my mind about like, my purpose is not social media. My purpose is that I have things that I know that have really helped me, I think if they were out in the world, they'd help others. They seem to help others. And this platform is this way where I can reach people. It's where people are congregating. And so if I am willing to go to the space where people are, there's a chance, a high likelihood, that out of that crowd are going to be people that say, I would actually like to go to that other space that you like to be in, where actually I feel like I'm way more of my authentic self. And the again, peelers in general, I think really lament social media, but I'm going to be the one maybe person that's just like, it's friggin' incredible that like an average person could upload a video and reach 5 million people for free. I mean, that is insane. That's never been available before for a single person equipped with their phone to be able to access an audience for something that they do. And it's allowing people to create these really niche audiences. So there's like, for as many things as I could say that are negatives about it, there are massive upsides. It's what allows people, quirky people like us, to do things like what we're doing right now. There was something else I wanted to say in there. Oh yeah, I feel like I'm going to use a lot of artist analogies. I feel like, what I want to do is like one of my things is I really do like group connection, and social media to me is like it's like an art form. Like I'm learning how to use a paintbrush. I'm learning how to put it on a canvas. And if I can do a form that grabs people's attention, then when I do my gallery showing, people will be there and I get to have the connection that I want to have with people. But I'm learning this form as I go. And one of the pieces I'm moving towards now is I think there is a helpful mindset for approaching social media. And one of it is it's a format, it has certain rules. And if you try to reinvent the wheel from scratch, you're going to you're making it's harder. And I'm not saying you can't, but and in some ways I did not follow the advice I'm going to share with you. And so I bumbled into these ideas. So I'm sharing things with you that maybe help you skip steps, is to just learn what is the formula that of communication, what's the type of paintings that grab people's attention, how do I work within that formula, and then within the form inject something that is truly from the heart. I'll talk about this later, but like I do think about what's the first, when I'm creating a video, what's the first sentence I say? Part of the form of social media is that there's a million other videos. If you're using video, not everyone will. There's a million other videos. People's attention spans are short. So the very first sentence, often people call it the hook, is it's the most important thing. So I use that. I think about the first sentence, but then hopefully, if I can kind of get the first sentence in a way that like this is grabbing, this teaches people who this is for, then hopefully they stick around for something that comes through that's even deeper than just a grabbing sentence. So that's kind of my like, I'm always playing with, I'm following a format, I'm trying to work with what I see works, and then I'm trying to bring people towards something that feels heart-centered. And I'm remembering the thing I wanted to say, which is the thing I love about my journey with social media is I think it does prove that there's people looking for depth on the platforms. They're out there. Not the majority of people, but millions of people are there, wanting ideas, are interested in healing, um, and are probably like me, very like tired of the kind of the superficial side of things. So okay, so back to mindset. Here's one of the most important things I have to share is think it's helpful to become kind of like a mad scientist with social media. I'm going to put up a few ideas, then I'm going to watch how they do. How many views did that get? How many likes did that get? Did I get some nice comments? And begin to play around with, oh, that grabs people. That painting reaches people. That's interesting to people. And then to begin to replicate. It's a little like a scientist testing things. And here's the part that I think is really important is as you do that, to really caution the part of you that might take it personally that something does well or something doesn't. This is the thing I see trip up so many people is you share something that is heart-centered. And this is the challenge with so much of our work. We're doing work that is a part of us fundamentally, and then we put it out into the world. And if no one responds to it, it feels like we lost the popularity contest. It feels like no one showed up to our birthday. And it's like, I have to do all of this internal talk about this, but the thing I want to encourage you to do, and I actually think it's more true than no one showed up to my birthday, is to blame the communication of the message always. To say, I love this idea. I'm talking about somatics, and I just felt like it didn't reach anyone. No one responded to it. What was the first sentence that I said? Was it grabbing? Did I leave in dead air? Was I speaking with some confidence? I'll talk about confidence later because actually it's kind of important. Were there a lot of ums? Was there a slowing of my pace? You might notice this. I speak way faster in social media than I do. And it's weird for me. It's a little bit strange, but it is, again, me playing with, okay, I was a mad scientist and I realized through my tinkering that the videos that I talked a little faster seemed to reach more people. So I'm like, I think I have to kind of just talk a little bit faster in order to make the connections that I want to make. So I'm kind of making a trade-off there. Can I perform this a little faster in the hopes that the right people are going to end up showing up later for things that I really love doing, that I can be slow and a little bit less, immediately to the point. That's the trade-off I'm always making. Oh, okay, so let me take a little pause, and I'll pause for a moment of questions in a second too. Become a tinkerer, blame the message. What was it about what I said that might have lost people's attention? I think is the most important question. And within that, if you're doing video, it's what was it about the very first sentence? There's almost a part of me that's like uncomfortable saying this to you because it's like I'm there's something very superficial about it and I don't like the way attention spans have moved in the world. But if you're working in video, the first thing you say is really responsible for 70% of, I think, in my experience, the how many people did it reach, was their engagement, the very first sentence. So in some ways, blame the first sentence when in doubt. And what that buffers from me is, oh, did my hair look bad? Oh, maybe I don't have a good speaking voice. Uh, like I don't know if you do follow me. I don't know if you've made this connection before, but I'm not really, as a person, really social media material in a lot of ways. Like I actually don't I've had clients say this. I'm like, Nick, you're really successful on that platform and you don't seem like a social media person at all. And I'm like, yeah, that's I think really true. I think that for me, through trial and error, I think there's a part of that that has become like a little bit of like a secret, a benefit to. I don't look like it, so maybe that's grabbing about some things that I say. But again, one of the things I think it proves is it's about the message and how you communicate it. How quickly did you basically articulate that what I'm about to say is for you? And just look at my videos. as examples of the very first sentence. This is my favorite thing I've ever heard written about black sheep and families, and it's this. That hook, is basically responsible for the most successful video I ever put out there, which was random. I had no idea that was going to do that. I the most common hook that I use all the time, again, I don't like the word, but common lead is to just describe the person I'm talking to. And I'll tell you right now, one of the things I'm going to move towards, partially because I'm doing a lot of work on myself with it, is highly sensitive people. So you're probably going to see me over the next 2 weeks say like 15 times if you follow me. One of the things that I think is really helpful for highly sensitive people is one of the hardest things about being a highly sensitive person is I really like identifying the type of person I'm speaking to right away. And for me, and I bumbled into it, but I'm really passionate about the role of the black sheep and the scapegoat. What I didn't know is that's a type of form in that's if you are the black sheep of your family or the scapegoat, it's very it stops you because not many people talk about it. That was really trial and error that I didn't realize how many people wanted to hear me talk about that. But I will tell you, I don't think I'll summarize by saying this. If I hadn't used the term black sheep in the first 7 seconds of that video, I don't think it would have reached many people. That was the thing that taught people this is who this is for. Okay. Hi, Satch. So, okay, I'm gonna move. Got a little bit more into the weeds there than I wanted to, so I'm gonna zoom back a little bit. So I'm really suggesting to be a tinkerer, to adopt a growth mindset, and to, in every way possible, connect yourself back to this isn't about you. People are when they're in their phone, they're in a very self-contained, very self-centered place. And when they reach you through their phone, you're like a television show character to them. It's just and some will go deeper and kind of be curious about who you are, but it's like it's just it's less personal than I think if you're an empathic person, if you're someone that loves the connectiveness of a field for healing, like I know you all do, um, it's going to be you're probably also going to be the type of person that takes things personally in this way. And so I'm just trying to, it's easier said than done. I'm not always great at it. Blame the communication, blame the words you used, blamed the speed, blame the background, blame the lighting before you blame yourself. And there are people, I haven't done this as much because I'm I'm always unsure, but like sometimes people will take, I know I've got this idea I really like. I'm gonna just basically record the video 2 or 3 times, play with the messaging, tinker with it. So that kind of mindset I think is helpful. And the last thing I'll say about the mindset is I think having resources like this community, a friend to call, people to talk to about how it feels, because it can bring up a lot in us, I think is really helpful. I know for me, I've had to have people to call, especially around kind of like trolling and bullying that can happen on social media, which is one of the tips I'm going to share a little bit more about later. But it's still nice to, even the piece about posting, it's can be so vulnerable. It can feel painful when something doesn't do well. Having people to talk about, talk with is, I think, helpful. Okay. I'm going to get more like, I think mindset is key because I think the mindset of this isn't so personal is, allows you to keep going into everything I'm about to share with you, which is, I think, the kind of the details of, I think what I see really works. Okay. Most people that get started in social media begin just sharing what they like. And it's kind of just like on any given day, I'm going to share the thing that I'm interested in. I'm going to take a picture of this. I'm going to share what I enjoy. And I think that's actually a very wise way to start. We're learning how to paint. I keep using this, some of you joined late, but I keep using this analogy of I paint the painting so that people show up to the gallery. Then I get to have connections with people that I want to have. So if I keep learning how to paint the right painting, I keep making the right connections. But I have to learn the form first. I think it's one way of thinking about social. So um, when you start off, you don't know what people really want other than seeing what other people do. So you just have to kind of paint a lot of paintings and try stuff. When I started, I was sharing stuff a lot about meditation, a little bit about intergenerational trauma and family constellations, and I was sharing tarot card spreads. I don't know if some of you might know that about me. I was really into oracle cards for like the first 2 years I was on Instagram, and I was just sharing stuff, and I was watching curiously. I did have a little bit of the tinkering mindset from the beginning, so it was kind of like, people seem to like the topic of intergenerational trauma. I like it. I authentically like it. I can see people like it. I'm going to share a little bit more about that. I'm going to try to explore it further. So you start with just sort of throwing stuff against the wall. For a long time, I would say 90% of the content I was sharing was basically viewed by less than 50 people or so, which means the algorithm determined that it wasn't very grabbing, is basically the short answer of it. Um, the thing that I want to encourage, maybe you're already at that stage or you're starting to kind of think more about, um, sometimes people use this word niche, is to begin to look at, okay, you've got all these interests, and my interests are constantly changing all the time. Where do your interests connect with the topics that are proven to be really interesting to people out online? And I'm going to spend a lot of time in this part, and then I'm going to pause and ask questions. So if you've been writing down questions, you'll get an opportunity. And this is the part I think people don't do enough of. They think, I'm interested in focalizing and somatics. I'm just going to share a lot about somatics. And the thing that I think separates people from sort of just putting out content in a more like, I'm just putting out what I'm inspired by, and I'm not thinking as much about the audience, and people that really reach a lot of people is the acknowledgement that it's not just about what I want to talk about, it's about aligning it with the things that the the world out there is gravitating towards. So, I bumbled into a lot of these. I got so ridiculously lucky, but you don't have to. You can use these tips to short to get through this quicker. So, for instance, topics that I've seen, I just see them always doing well out in social media. Topics around narcissism do really well. Um, narcissistic parenting. I'll switch to a totally different bad dates do really well on social media. I had this horrible date with this person. It made me delete all my apps. Um, short practices. So I'll go back to more, maybe for us, our group is like short practices that have a nice payoff, like tapping practices, breathing practices can do well. Things you might not be interested in, but like taking a controversial stance on something does very well. Parenting advice does well. Talking about neurodivergence does very well. Manifesting does very well on social media. The thing that you might want to do, take as a piece of homework, is to look at who are you following that you really like is and feel like is doing really well in the way that you want to. And look at what's kind of cool is you can look at all their reels and you can see in the bottom corner the amount of views they've gotten on each reel, which is a function of how much did the algorithm, how much did people gravitate towards this? And then look at what the topics are that they're talking about. It's like right there. They might even cross over with some of the topics I shared. And so if you're in I want to bring more people in, this is like audience building technique. Community nurturing is another technique. Audience building is to take what you love and align it or cross paths with a topic that the audience has demonstrated that they love. I fell into this. I got very lucky. I am someone that is just very interested in narcissism, and have experience with it. And I just started talking about it. It was later that I found out it's like, oh, there's people with like entire brands built around this. Um, and I probably a quarter of my entire audience was built off 5 to 7 videos talking about narcissism. It's so here's I'm going to give you some thought experiments and then I'll pause. Is because you might be saying, okay, how do I apply this? So, like, let's say you're an executive coach and you talk about executive coaching strategy. Here's how here's how to be confident. Here's how to like own a room. But you know that like having a terrible date is like a topic that really grabs people. To maybe create a video that's about how you went on a terrible date and the way that this person presented themselves reminded you of everything you teach about executive coaching that's important. So you're starting with a topic that you know really interests people, but then bringing it back to something that you're interested in. For some of you, I'm going to use a lot of embodiment stuff. Is like maybe you are someone that is more spiritually oriented and you are curious about manifestation, but you want to talk about somatics and focalizing. Maybe you talk about, there's actually like the thing I love about, sometimes I can't come up with the hook right on the spot, but like maybe the sentence is something to the effect of like, um, I only realized that like one of the powerful things that helped me about manifesting was when you connect to your purpose, it has an effect on your nervous system. When you visualize the things that you want in your life, there's a sense of safety that can wash over your body. And then you might even go into the space of, and it was actually my embodiment practice, my focalizing practice that supported me to actually create the life that I wanted to create. Hopefully, you're understanding that what I'm suggesting here is if you want to talk about it to cross over, to use that topic as a way. And I'm hopefully this is coming through is what I'm not saying is talk about things you don't want to talk about. Hopefully it's that you can look at what are people interested in and inject something authentically from yourself into the conversation. What do you have to say about it? I think I had one other example and then I'll pause. Oh, maybe you're going to talk about narcissistic abuse and how it is so relates to the way we treat the environment. And it allows you to start a conversation about narcissism and then bring it into the environmental activism you're interested in. People that are very successful at building audiences work off the topics that the audience tells them they want more of. And you can do that through your own platform, and you can do that by looking at other people's platforms. Again, you might bumble into these. That was my experience, but you can also shortcut it. So let me pause and take a breath. Questions. Um, and literally, it could be totally off topic of where I'm at, but any questions coming up for you or things you're like, Nick, I really hope you get to this and don't skip over this one part. is it making sense? Like, is this like I'm kind of going right to a strategy here that you can kind of chew on. Your homework is look at the favorite people that you follow that you think are doing great work. Notice what topics they're talking about that do well. Do you have something to say about that topic? Can you and then focus on the first sentence of what you share? That's the form of social media, and we play in it to hopefully then get to have deeper connections later. That's always my hope. I'm going to play in this thing because it helps me have the connections I want to have later with people. Okay. That's one of the more in the weeds technical things um, that I have to share. Let me just copy and paste into chat this next part so that you don't have to type as furiously. Okay. A few little tips I just wanted to include in this if you're kind of a little bit like, oh my gosh, there's so many things about the format that people are always sharing. This is sort of my hot list, as if that's even a term. My experience with social is that hashtags aren't that important. Maybe put a few down, but I use them, but I don't think they're make or break. The second, and I think this is a big relief to a lot of people, I don't think posting every day is the most important thing. I've never been a person. I basically post every day for a week and a half, and then I get tired and I stop, and then I come back to it. That's like always been my thing. And I will say, I think there's a little bit of a ramp up that I've seen of like, okay, I got to post like 2 or 3 times in a week, and then I'm back to like where I was, and then it's okay again. But I've never been an everyday person. I This is number 3 here, getting the format that grabs people, and then hopefully leading to a payoff, some helpful information. I think that's what really works. And then the second underneath that, talking or touching on known popular topics, I think is also really, really important. What's your opinion about um, the diagnosis process of like ADHD or something? Like, what was your experience with it? What was your child's experience with it? It's like, um, it's a topic people are really interested in, and you can share something of yourself around that topic. And then the 3 here are just general. I think Instagram favors being a teacher, being information oriented. I think TikTok, which may not exist in a week, so I don't know if this is even important, favors more personal connection. Often people are more comfortable on one or the other. And Facebook, I don't know what the hell is going on. I just repost my Instagram stuff, and it's been really powerful. There's a lot of people actually that have taken the vocalizing course or done stuff with me through it. But all I know is that it's the boomer kind of the baby boomer platform, so it's often reaching older people when you're there. Okay. Okay, a couple more things about format. Um, if you haven't heard, maybe you've heard people say this 1,000 times. I want to make sure you know it. Is so I'm learning how to work in the format. What are the values of the format? All of these social media companies, the number one most important thing to them is a metric called time spent on app. They want people to stay on the phone. And so what that means is the videos that you produce or the content that you produce that the algorithm decides to push out to a larger audience are the videos and content that slow people down, that stop them, and that keep them in the app. Another way of just saying that are grabbing and interesting. And maybe they sit on the video and watch it again. Maybe they comment or they read through the comments for a time. So it's like that. It's important to just know that if you're like, what allows something to reach many people and not others? how much time did it encourage people to spend on it? It's the number one thing. Um, this is why the first 5 seconds of a video is really important. You have to kind of grab people. You have to stop them on their scroll. Then hopefully there's information that they want to hear. They stay a little bit longer. Then there's maybe a summarizing idea that's really helpful or practice they can take away with. And they think, oh my gosh, that was so helpful. I'm going to go comment or I'm going to click share to someone else. All of those actions tell Meta or TikTok that this was a video that was interesting, that paused people, that increased a person's time spent on app. I'm going to share it with even more people. I'm going to share it with even more. So just making sure you're aware of that's how it works. Okay. Now I'm going to go into kind of like bulleted Nick's tips for doing social media. Number one is you're not going to fully know what works for you until you show up and do it. Most people learn through trial and error. So that I think it's that thing of I said most people start by just sharing what they like in all different directions, and it's a wide scope of ideas. That's a great way to start, as long as you're watching for what people grab onto. Watch what people like and then produce it again. And also, you just have to practice a lot, especially if you're doing video and you're not comfortable with video. The repetition is just really important. Number two is do research. Look at the people you like, notice the topics they're talking about. And I would encourage you to develop an artist's mindset. And this is more like I'm drawing from the music background. Musicians are like classically like kind of rip-off artists, like really good musicians. And I'm gonna butcher this because I don't know who said it, but it's like, great artists steal. It's like good artists borrow, great artists steal. And I am not encouraging you to steal ideas, but I think what musicians do a lot is they'll say, I love that drum beat. I'm going to take that drum beat and then put a different guitar part over it. And then it becomes something all its own. So to think about that, like there's this person I love, they're talking about nervous system regulation in a way that I like, but I feel like they're leaving out what a highly sensitive person might need to hear. I'm going to do a video about that. So I'm kind of borrowing inspiration, but then putting my own twist on it. I think is like a really healthy thing. And it's also, and I said this before some of you joined, if you try to do everything from scratch, reinvent the wheel, do social media in a way no one else is doing, you may become the like savant musician that everyone suddenly is like, oh my gosh, they sound like no one else and they're incredible. But the percentage of that is smaller. It's harder to reinvent the wheel. So I encourage you to work within the format if you don't have a ton of energy to reinvent the wheel. Okay. Another Nick social media tip, develop a routine around this. I draw from Brian Eno here, famous producer. He took music and made it a job. He was like, I show up every day to write. I don't show up every day to write, but I show up often to write. I sit down, even if I don't think I'm inspired, I just start writing. I also have a little notepad file in my phone where I'll just like jot down something that inspired me. It's like, oh, this movie really highlighted something about mother wounds that I just want to talk about that. And then I'll go to my phone and look up stuff. Something I have found, and I don't know if it'll be true for you, is when you sit down and write out an idea or think through something, something just can come forward. Even if you didn't think you were inspired, the act of sitting down and trying sometimes comes right before inspiration. So Brian Eno would, basically work almost like a 9 to 5 doing music. That was his style. I'm not going to just do it when I'm inspired. I'm going to show up as much as I can. Show up as much as you can is a tip I have. Another tip that I feel there's a little bit of complication in my body as I say it, because I know I just want to acknowledge it because it's a big thing, but also how you find it, I think will be your own. If you're using video, speak confidently. Confidence is very engaging. I a little bit lament this, that social media and the audience out there wants people that are like highly opinionated and it's like, this is the way the world is, and no one else understands it. It's like there's something about, even as I say that and I hear myself, it's like I want to hear what that person's about to say. This is the way the world is. My brain does not naturally work that way. So I've had to kind of I sometimes one of the tricks I do is I think about on the other side of the camera, there's someone that, if this, first of all, if this reaches someone and really benefits their life, it's all been worth it. And if I don't show up with a little bit of energy, um, they might not pay attention. So I'm gonna drum it up a little bit. I'm gonna kind of maybe move a little bit and get some energy going into my body. I'm gonna stretch a little bit. Sometimes I make silly sounds and kind of get myself laughing as I'm doing this work. I've thought occasionally about creating a blooper reel about things I've recorded and like moments I've been cursing on camera in between takes. I do things to kind of loosen myself up. And then you'll notice I do this if you watch mine. This is just my strategy. I often lean in as I start my videos. And for me, that is like an embodied way to kind of be like, I'm sending this message. This is important. I think this is important. Um, does my brain naturally fully work that way? No, I think there's never one truth. But so you'll see, I don't think I've ever said this is the way the world works and everyone doesn't get it. But I kind of say like, the thing that that I think people need to understand, or, you know, um, I'm trying to think of examples. You'll see them. If you can speak confidently, if you can find that part in yourself, it is very powerful. This one's hard for me. I don't really do this as much, but if you are a person that has good internal protectors, maybe be controversial. Maybe respond to things with an opinion that you're like, this is what I believe, and I know it's going to annoy some people. I know it's going to be upsetting. I shy away from this because I'm too sensitive and I don't like when people kind of bully me. But some people don't have this problem. So, controversy, you might use it. Okay, I said this one already. A tip for you all: have someone to call or to be able to speak to around bullying or just like trolling. The internet is so weird, and I'm someone that has a really a very intense experience with traumatic bullying and cyberbullying, and so it's a very sensitive thing for me. There was a time where I almost kind of like stopped doing what I was doing because it was so hard. Um, I will tell you, I was mad scientist tinkering mode. I was like, I need to find a solution for this. I had a VA for a time that was going through my comments and deleting mean comments so that I just wouldn't even have to see them or messages. And it was through that process I discovered that if something you share just reaches a massive audience, like hundreds of thousands of people, there's just always going to be a percentage of people that are very likely projecting their own insecurities, all that stuff and are going to place it and try to put it on you. this was stupid. You don't know what you're talking about. TikTok is so superficial. People are like talk about how you look in weird ways, and I've definitely had to just lean on my somatic tools, take breaks, to mitigate a little bit of like the sting of that. However, um, I do think for me it was worth it. And also some of the things I'm telling you right now, you might be more like, I want to build an audience of like 8 to 10,000 people and have a thriving business on this community. You can totally do that. As it grows more, there's more likelihood that you'll reach some people that are trolling and like just block liberally, block often. I still don't understand. I've never written a comment like this to a person in my life, but some people really feel like the anonymity, I have resources to lean on. I think you understand. Okay, three more. I'm gonna give these notes to a VA so that she can put this in a format that maybe you can all take away from. I think it's so much. I'm a little worried that I'm just gonna I'll try to deliver something to you. Another Nick tip for social media: beware of phone addiction. I actually feel that audience member social media interaction is to me much less addicting than creator. Um, I'm the kind of person that I could post something, especially at the beginning, and just refresh it for like 2 hours. It's weird. Like I want to see what's happening. I'm afraid of how people might respond, so I'm almost like monitoring. It took me a little while to get comfortable with, and I'm still not totally comfortable, that there's people in the world having a conversation about me that I'm not a part of. That's really weird for me. So beware of the phone addiction piece. I definitely set my phone down. Having a kid has been helpful where I just kind of have to like move along, but beware. Okay, two more, then I'm going to pause. And I can stay 5 minutes over and then I have to run. Um, change your format often. I've mentored some people in the past, not related to the focalizing community, about social media. And one of the things I noticed was some of them, sometimes they emphasize, oh, I have to post every day. And then they create a ton of the content that's basically kind of like the same thing. It's a podcast view. I'm doing the same kind of video over and over again. And the engagement that they're getting more or less kind of stays the same. I would encourage you to run experiments, be the mad tinkering scientist, put out 4 or 5 videos on a topic with a certain background. Maybe you're in your car, maybe you've got nature behind you. See how it does. And if you're like, nothing really grabbed people, change the format. Maybe you're someone that's like, I want to be hiking in the woods, or I'm not doing podcast content. That is what I want to do. Um, you don't have to spend so much time in one format. I think 5 to 10 videos or carousels is like more than enough to notice, is this getting a response from the audience? And then I've got one more tip, which is email. There are people that do not use social media at all and completely run their business through email lists, or social media is very small and it's mostly a thriving email list community. And you have to develop a way of getting people on the email list. Maybe do free classes, maybe do community classes in your area. But whatever your strategy is, and this is a little bit like, Nick, you needed to be doing this more, and I'm going to be doing it more, is um, email is the most valuable way to stay connected with people. As we're about to see with TikTok getting banned, you don't own the connection with your audience if it's just through social media. So email is actually more likely to stay with people no matter how many tech companies come through with new platforms. So whatever you're doing, consider ways of like, hey, I'm going to give this to you. Can you sign up with email? You've probably seen that before. It's because email is the most important thing. Um, so just, I'm going to be doing a little bit more about this, but think in terms of how do I build my email list as I'm doing this. Okay. Final summarizing ideas. I am always in a dance around who I authentically am, what's coming from my heart, and the format that works for the audience. And I think everyone's got to kind of find their dance with it. But what I would encourage today is a nudge towards take that authentic you, that voice that's there, and how can it work with the format that works, instead of feeling like they work against each other. And find your way with that as much as you can. For me, and this is what helped me, was just it's about sharing ideas. This isn't about me personally. It's about communicating the message. And I share in that way. I teach, I get to the point. I perform what I say with a little bit of gusto. As a person that's pretty like level, that for me, what you're seeing is like a little bit of gusto in those videos, but it helps. Um, and again, I think resources like this, I kind of want to make this a series to do more on it, but I will remind that in the focalizing community, we have the just being yourself. I'm having a total blank spot, but the third type of meeting we do here is about just showing up and sharing authentically. The dojo can also be a place to bring questions about this, so let's just stay connected about it. Okay, time to pause. If you do have to run, it is time, so thank you so much for being here, but I'm also open. Do people have questions or maybe things you want me to take back and include in a future class? It's been helpful. What's been missing?
I was going to say, when you were talking about like the commentary or the sort of like negative comments or the concern trolling that people do, I guess that's something that we can also lean into as well. Could like use their criticisms as like future topics, you know, because that also brings them back in
100%.
for future engagement.
100%. And every platform's a little different, but I know, I mean, some people have built huge audiences on TikTok, literally responding to trolls, like saying, like, I can't believe this person said this. So that's one way. And the other thing, thank you so much for sharing that, is any comment, good, bad, or in between, is in favor of the algorithms. It actually supports you. So it's kind of funny. It's when someone says something negative to you, they've actually helped because the algorithm also pushes controversial content. And if someone responds to that person's comment, that's additional comments. So there's definitely bright sides to it too, instead of just like crawling up in the fetal position like I've done. Not joking. Um, okay. I got a question. It was direct message, so I'm not going to share it. But it was if I was starting out in social media, what platforms would I choose? I would choose Instagram and YouTube. And and I'll say very quickly, it's been studied. I found this that Instagram is the most money generating platform. Like the people that frequent Instagram are the people that are most likely to spend money. I think it's like the age group, people in the middle of, they're kind of like millennial, Gen X. There's just more disposable income. And then YouTube, one thing that just started is their shorts are now 3 minutes long. So that I'm like breathing a sigh of relief because 60 seconds, I can't say anything in 60 seconds. It's like that's way too hard. So now it's 3 minutes, and YouTube is powerful because they actually have a really good monetization system. So if you build a mid-size audience there, you can actually get a nice like income from the views. So I'm actually literally meeting with someone later this week talking about bringing more of what I do to YouTube. So that's my answer to that. Other questions and comments?
No questions, but I just wanted to say thank you. It's been so helpful. I've been thinking about this type of stuff a lot, and it's just felt like it's offered a lot of clarity, particularly around, sort of the first sentence, how important that is, as well. And I suppose that that refinement piece, sort of doing the tinkering, but then having a look actually, what are these things, and working with the format but still being authentic. I find that one a tricky one at times. So it's been really helpful how you framed it and the examples you've given.
I'm so glad, Amy. Yeah, it's always that dance. But if I just turn on my camera, just to use as an example, if I just turn on my camera and I'm being my authentic self, like I'm I'm gonna be speaking very slowly, probably gonna be playing maybe some video games or something. Like it's not like the video, the format of social media is to communicate a message. So there's a piece of this that hopefully in the message is imbued something that comes from the heart. And I really do work towards that. But it's not just, I don't think it's the best format to just be yourself. Also because um, I am so much more than what would come through a person's screen. I am so much deeper than the lights and sound on a phone screen. So even if I am questing to be more and more and more authentic, there's still always going to be this way that this person on the other side doesn't really know me. So I've kind of you're inspiring me to say, I think I've kind of made peace with like, this just isn't about me. It's about what I'm communicating and can I do it in a way that is digestible to people, stops them in the middle of their busy day, and hopefully leads to the larger purpose of what I'm doing, which is things like what I'm doing here, like actually enabling people with healing work that I think is powerful and beautiful and getting to have longer, deeper connections. So I'm playing in that realm to get to things like this. Um, yeah. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna pause us here. And if you want to post more questions in the community, I'll read and answer. And I'm gonna also reflect myself on anything else I might have missed and try to share some notes afterwards too. Thank you all. Good to see you.